The number one rule of role-playing, the number one rule of RPGs, something that I'm confident exists in every edition of every rule set, somewhere, a paragraph, a sentence. I know it exists in every edition of Dungeons & Dragons in the Dungeon Master's Guide, that core rule book. RPGs, rules optional. And as a GM, as a game master, this, as you find your vision and voice, as you tap into your creative potential to tell that story, to drive the narrative, to build that world, there's this duality, there's this importance to realize that at any moment you can disqualify any rules. And if there are rules or segments of the rules that you don't want to utilize in the game, in your world, in your campaign, that's okay. That's in the rules also. This idea of rules and anti-rules. This idea that a role-playing game is a construct. It's not so much a setting. I mean, some are fantasy-based, some are sci-fi. Something like GURPS can be applied. General, universal role-playing system can be applied to any kind of time period. But separate and pulled out of that time period, the rules are there to set up the physics of the universe, how that gaming universe works and what your characters can do and what the anti-characters can do and how things work within that order. So as such, as the world builder, as the GM, the game master, you can tweak, you can utilize, you can change those however you want. That's kind of what's agreed upon by the players and the storyteller, those rules. Now, 2 points on this. Certainly when you're starting out, right, you're brand new to a system, and this could be even from the perspective of my own experience. I've been playing D&D for a number of years. D&D occupies a central place, a very important place in my role-playing life. I've played other role-playing games over the years. I love Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I love Dark Heresy. I've played Rolemaster. I've played GURPS. But when I started to play Invisible Sun, and Invisible Sun now occupies an important part and a tremendous part in my role-playing kind of experience, it was such a radical departure on how to approach an RPG, just how to play and what you can do. Even with all of my experience as a DM, as a GM, Dungeon Master, Game Master, I had to step back and say, I got to wrap my head around this. So I'm going to start for our first couple of games. We're not going to utilize all the rules. We're not going to utilize everything because I need to wrap my head around this new narrative. So it's not a question of, hey, you're brand new to role-playing games. This is your first system. You have no idea what's going on. No, you could be a veteran player. You can be an experienced player. So sometimes the first couple of adventures or that first kind of outing, if there's stuff you don't quite understand or if there's stuff that you're going to feel is a little bit too complex, don't utilize it. And then over time, I'm going to say house rules, but they're not quite house rules. As you play with a regular group and you learn the various player personalities that mix in with your own personalities, now we begin to see elements of a rule set that the players enjoy and want to utilize more, and we want to tap into that potential because that's going to drive the narrative. That's going to build the world. That's going to create those adventure hooks and all that great stuff that makes up an RPG. And then there are going to be pieces which are unique to the group where there's not much interest or there's not a lot in terms of playing it. So maybe we change those. Maybe we ignore those. Maybe we get rid of those. So I say that as a takeaway. As you're developing your skills in running role-playing games, remember, rule number one, all of the rules are optional.